Welcome to the Creative Spaces Podcast. This is Kevin Booth and Rob Winter, and we're talking to successful people about their careers, how they got started, and their surrounding environment that influences the creative process. In today's episode, we're talking to percussionist, drummer, and clinician, Kaylee Moyer.
I like to kind of be the drummer that when you need something a little more out of the box, to kind of be that person you call. I don't do as much of just the straight up country demo. I definitely can, but I like somebody that's looking for something a little unique. Can you give me an option with that? You've got a bunch of percussion instruments at your disposal. Instead of playing the hi-hat, can you put this on it instead? If you want just a fresh take or a fresh idea, drumming wise, I kind of want to be that person.
Based in Nashville, Kaylee is a graduate of Belmont University and has been building a successful career performing and recording with artists including Keith Urban, Ashley Clark, Reignite, and breakout pop artist Whitney Woerz. Kaylee records and engineers sessions and product demos as well as online teaching at her Nashville-based studio, where she's joining us today. Kaylee, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
So how have you been over the past year and a half?
It has been an unexpected adventure. It was a little scary at the start, but, once we all kind of hunkered down and settled in, it opened up a lot of new doors and opportunities that I don't know if I would have considered going down those roads if we weren't all forced to stay home for the period of time we did. So it's kind of been a blessing in disguise, which is kind of scary to call it, that
Right.
when so much of the world has been in turmoil, but I don't know, it sent me down this new path, and I kind of really love where my career is heading now because of that.
Is that new path doing tracks at home, doing drum tracks for others? And
Yeah, that's a big part of it. So, Rob, you helped me turn, my home space into the studio space I always dreamed of and needed. But at that time still, in 2019, I was still traveling and touring a lot. I wasn't doing a lot. I didn't have a lot of time at home to get into recording drum tracks for other people. But thankfully that was all ready. I had the gear. I had everything set up, dialed in, ready to go. When this pandemic started, I finally had the chance to get into it and start using it and diving deep into the world that I'd always wanted to. But this was kind of my shot at working on that. So it has been mostly recording drum tracks, percussion tracks, orchestral percussion stuff, different, soundscape stuff, and then a little bit of virtual teaching as well. That I wasn't doing a lot of private lessons ever because I don't have a place to teach out of, and I don't want to bring strangers over, but being able to do it virtually and then kind of cater that towards what students need now. And the two topics were, one is college auditions are virtual now. So I've been helping grooming a lot of students' audition videos to get them into college music programs for one. And then two, many of my students see where I'm working out of, and they're like, I want to set up my room like that. How do I learn to record drums from home as well? So some of that has also been mentoring and teaching other drummers kind of how to do what I've been doing.
that's
So
great.
between the
That's
teaching and tracking, that's really what I've dug down into. And I never thought about teaching about that. And now I love doing that. So I don't know, two new things.
That's great. So what drew you to the career path you're on now? So you started playing drums at a young age?
Yeah, I got my first drum set when I was 10 years old for Christmas. But I think I've always just been fascinated by rhythm since my earliest memories. My parents are big fans of just listening to music. My mom is a massive Rush fan. So I was listening to,
Awesome.
Rush in the womb and
Oh, wow.
as, an infant. And I think that had a lot to do with it. I was also born in Alaska. So I was really greatly influenced by some of the Native American drumming in that part of the world. And I just always loved rhythm. I don't know what it was. I loved going to like the river dance show as a kid. And I thought it was the dancing that dazzled me, but it was the rhythms and the feet, the rhythms and the bodhrán and the drums. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I was, beating on the pots and the pans, and finally got to sit down at a drum set one day and was listening to the radio, and it for the first time, it made sense. the whole mechanics of the right arm over the left arm came really easily to me, which it doesn't to some people. And just, I finally felt like, as a kid, you're trying to search for that one thing you're good at. You try karate, you try swimming, you try dance. And it's like, I sat down at the drums. I'm like, this is what I like. This makes sense and it connects. And like immediately 10 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It was like, I knew all along, but I just kind of had to find that outlet, but it was always rhythm.
Yeah. So were you self-taught from there? Did you take lessons at 10 years old or?
So my first drum set came with the Sandy Gennaro's Drum Basics VHS, which took me through the first few months. But my parents knew that, that wasn't going to last me very long. So they got me into drum lessons immediately with John Bletch up in Oswego, New York. And he immediately started teaching me how to read, like right from the get-go. How am I going to read notations? We start all of our lessons with rudiments and sight reading and drumming from all over the world. And he got into it, right away. I had high school band and I had private lessons, steadily up until I went to college. So
cool. Was your high school music program? Was that beneficial to you too? I mean, did you have a strong music program in school?
Absolutely. I had the most amazing school district to grow up in and play music. The Phoenix Central School District in Phoenix, New York. They had everything. I was in the drama program. I was in all the vocal choral programs. Their band programs, they had great middle school jazz band, high school jazz band, marching band, indoor drum line. And one of my main band directors, John Bird, was a percussionist himself. So my main band director also, you don't always get your band director to play the instrument you play.
Right.
And he
exactly.
did. And he spent a lot of extra time with me that I'm thankful for. And I got to eat, sleep, breathe music all through high school.
Wow.
And
Excellent.
I don't know if I had gone through another school district, I would not have had the kind of support experience that my school district gave me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
What drummer inspired you the most? Was it Neil Peart? Since your mom was a Rush fan, you certainly heard a lot of it then.
Neil Peart has kind of been that constant. I mean, every year you discover somebody new in different parts of your life. A new drummer might come into my life, and I love his career. But, Neil Peart has been that constant for me since I was a little girl, just because his drumming and his music, just from album to album over the 40 years, it changed, it evolved, and he never stopped taking lessons himself. And that is,
exactly.
a huge influential, just this idea that you never stop growing. You should never stop seeking to improve and learn more about this craft that you love doing. So Neil Peart was definitely one of my biggest influences. Chester Thompson here in Nashville has also been, a huge idol for me, and probably the biggest reason that I moved to Nashville, actually, to begin with, so that I could start studying with him full time.
Oh, really? At Belmont? Is that why you moved? Or when you moved?
I moved here to Nashville full time to go to Belmont. But I had been visiting here in the summer with my parents starting at 12, 13-ish years old. We'd come to Forks Drum Closet here in Nashville, and I'd take a couple lessons with Chester Thompson. And that was like my summer vacation trip, was coming to Nashville. So I knew when I was young, I'm like, I want to move to Nashville. I want to be like Chester Thompson. So Belmont kind of came into the picture because he was teaching there, and that was the perfect excuse to get down here at 18.
So your parents were really supportive. I mean, they took this seriously.
Yes, it was immediately. I think they saw this spark in my eye that I never had before. And I'm so thankful. I mean, it was immediately like, okay, what do we need to do to make this dream of yours happen? And was it getting a drum set? Was it taking me to play blues jams on a Wednesday night, a school night? Coming to all of these shows. I mean, they are killer parents, amazing parents. And when I told them I want to move to Nashville and play drums, and it was like, great, well, we need to get you a space in Nashville where you have room for your kit. We need to get you a truck that you can fit your drums in.
Really?
They're absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Well, I think I know the answer to this question then. So did you ever have a backup plan? Was there ever like, well, if the drum thing doesn't work out, I'll do this? Or
Well, the short answer to that is no, because I think my parents, when I talked to them about this, because I like to think that I'm a relatively responsible individual, and I want to my parents to be proud of me. And that would mean like in high school, I really wanted to give them a backup plan that, we could be proud of.
Right.
But that backup plan seemed to be everybody telling me I needed to go to school for music education and, have a band director's degree to fall back on. And not that I don't respect that career and I don't love teaching. I just never saw teaching in that way as something that I ever really felt like I was suited well to do or wanted to do. And I remember my mom telling me that if I had a backup plan, that I was probably going to have to fall back on it. But if I chase what I'm passionate about with all my heart, then I'm going to find a way to make that work.
Yeah.
So
certainly all your experience in the former would only lend to being an instructor as well. Right.
Yeah. And I always saw that as part of, what I could do. I mean, within the world of drumming, I definitely am doing things that maybe you could consider as a backup plan. Like I love teaching still, but I like doing that on specific topics, which is why I do, individual stuff online, but I also love doing clinics with drummers on very specific, parts of drumming. So I'm still teaching and sharing that, but it's not with an all, group of all different kinds of musicians. It's pretty specific. But just to be able to make your complete living off of being a musician, I mean, I'm having to do a lot of different things, which is why like learning how to record drums and learning how to record myself is such a big passion project of mine. And I mean, that's kind of a fallback, but it's also enhancing what I'm doing. I think that you have to have your hands in a lot of different pies at the same time.
Yeah,
and depending on what happens in the world, we learned how important this is last year to just always have something that, if touring falls out of the picture, which is what I love doing probably the most, I always have to have these other things that also can support me, make me happy, inspire me, and keep me playing music.
Right. Did you play the Broadway circuit at all in Nashville?
No, I didn't. I didn't really get into that. I spent a lot of time every day after class when I was in college trying to network with producers and artists because I was really interested on starting on the ground level with an artist's music and kind of helping them come up with the groove, the tempo, working on this drum part. So I was doing a lot of shorter gigs with original artists, just trying to, because I knew that was also the gateway, the bridge into working in the studio world. Sure. So that was kind of, I knew what I wanted immediately when I moved here. And that was kind of getting into the touring, into the studio work. And at least at that time, Broadway wasn't really leading me in that direction, I felt like.
Right. Yeah. It's changed a lot over the years, for sure.
It has. And I wasn't doing a lot of country either immediately. Nashville has so much more than just country, but the Broadway circuit is a lot of country genre.
Yeah. Now it's a lot of pop, kind of.
Yeah, as country music has changed.
As country, yeah. Which a good song you can play in any style, right? So nothing wrong with that. But a few years ago, I think it was a little more interesting anyway. But that Broadway circuit and the cover gig, that can seem like a job, right? That can seem like being pigeonholed or a kind of a stopping place. You wanted to write music and grow a little more, right?
Yeah, which is a sacrifice on the front end. I think like the Broadway circuit and those gigs, it is steady and you can make a lot of money doing it. So it's easy to see like, yes, that is a good way to, save me right now. But and not that that's a bad thing at all. I have a lot of really great friends that are very successful down there and love what they're doing. What I do is a bit more of a fight sometimes, but just internally it's really rewarding for me kind of going the route that I have taken. Yeah.
Where it shows, and there's so much content on YouTube and other places of you playing. Your playing is exceptional. It's really good.
Thank you.
I just want to say the first time I met Kaylee was at the Nashville drum show. I think it was what year? Probably like 2014, I don't know. It was a while ago.
That was just coming up in my Facebook memories. It's like 7 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And you were doing a performance. You were doing a clinic or performance with your friend Kyle. with the your group was called Chromatics, which I think you still have that, but and I just everybody, but myself, I was like, I didn't know who you were, and I was blown away by your playing and just your technique, and I was like, wow, she's got it going on, and I wanted to find out more who you were, and so it did. And one thing I think I mentioned this to you, said, had you had experience in drum corps at all, or marching band? And I think you said yes. I wasn't sure about that, but I was curious if that was a part of your, when you were coming up and learning how to play, if that was part of the equation.
Yeah, that was definitely a big part of the discipline, getting regimented, having a good set of exercises to work through, learning traditional grip. Definitely. So I did, started middle school parade band, went up to high school field band, and they had the indoor drumline version of it. I never, by the time I got to college, when most people were doing the drum corps stuff, I was getting a little too busy to be able to dedicate whole summers to do it. And I always kind of regretted it and wanted to, because I loved playing the snare drum, and I loved, the way it was changing how I played the drum kit. It definitely made my hands a lot stronger. But and I also liked how it influenced, because I was also working on traditional grip, studying jazz with my jazz drum set instructor, Eric Schmidt, and just kind of learning the differences. But I know that I was able to play a lot stronger and have that stronger grip because of the drum corps stuff. And it still comes in from time to time. I'll get the random gig here and there that I still have to play marching snare. And it's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just, that was just another part of your set of tools that you have that you can call upon. So.
Everything between that, studying classical percussion so much and playing in symphonies, that all goes into my drum set playing. And I think it shows. I approach things slightly differently.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
So you had the opportunity to work in a lot of studios, live venues, including your own studio. So what in a space inspires you creatively? Or what does it require? It could be a lot of things, right?
No,
first you need a Pearl drum kit, right?
No, yes, of course I need a Pearl drum kit. And I need my Pearl drum kit, because the one I have right now, my Masters Maple Gum, is specifically made for like the Nashville session drummer right now. That drum speaks really well. That drum kit speaks really great for the recording studio settings. But I don't know, something about walking into the right recording studio, it almost feels like a church. It's a very, the room itself, all the people that have come through it and made music in it, kind of has this almost spiritual experience where all the music that's made there is also a piece of it's left there after you've performed it. It's in the walls. That's why I love more historic studios, is kind of having that. I don't know. It's more of a feeling. It's everything. It's hard on a stage to be able to focus in and have that tunnel vision to really focus on the drums in front of you. But in a studio, the right environment, the lighting, the sound can really just draw you in and internally and just be able to focus. So setting my own studio up, that was going to be important to me. The lighting, the look, the color, to be able to, like, this is where I want to come, and I want to be able to focus and learn about myself more and be able to like let what's inside of me speak through my playing, and just kind of having the right environment is everything.
Yeah.
Having a room that's not too dead, that still lets my drums' individual characteristics come through. That's big.
Very important.
But isn't chaotic sounding at the same time?
Yeah. And I love hearing the differences of the studios in Nashville. Some are all wood on the inside. Some are very padded in. Some are like slate or rock. And I love what that does to the sound too, because drums are wood. So you put them in a wood room and they sound really good, but you're not drawing out, you're not hearing the individual characteristics of that kit. But you put it in a room of rock and slate around you. And suddenly it's like, I'm hearing these little pieces of the wood grain, coming out, and how each snare drum sounds different because I'm not just adding on top of that wooden sound. I'm really drawing it out.
Right.
So I like to think that my room at home is kind of a mixture of everything that I wanted. It's not, it's in my house. I still have the tall ceilings and it's a big size room. So I still have enough of that live drum room sound. It's not too dead. Having my cloud above my drum set definitely helps with that. But just being able to have a big enough space for the drums so that they have a good room sound and it's controlled. And then just having that environment where I can focus and really bring out my best.
Right.
Awesome.
And then we have a saying or a slogan that we use. It's not the gear, it's the room. And we just do that so you focus on the room and we think about, acoustic treatment where it's needed and the sound of the room. But the gear is important too. Like it's all really important and has to come together, right? To get the right sound.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of what inspired me to go through this whole remodel in the first place. I was kind of getting bummed out recording drums in Nashville. And I mean, I've spent, thousands of dollars and thousands of hours developing my craft and my playing and studying music and lots of money on the physical drums that I've played growing up and the heads and learning to tune them and the sticks I'm using. And from my end, I'm giving you the best quality you can get. And then sometimes, by the way, it's captured or it's mixed later, I just feel like it loses sometimes. I was getting bummed out because it was losing that quality. And I felt like what I started with sounded so good. I wish I could have complete control of my sound from the gear I'm playing on and my ideas all the way through to the captured, mixed, mastered final product. So how do I make that happen? I didn't get to go to school for audio engineering. I went to school for performance and commercial music. And I still was able to take audio classes. And I mean, of course, I'm a big advocate of when you can afford, getting really great engineers on your session to mix and master and everything. Of course, I'm going to call those guys in, but I want to be able to still be able to capture myself well and be able to communicate on the mixing end. What do I want for my drums? Because I think I know my drums better than anybody. I know exactly what frequencies you're not going to want. I know what I'm going to want boosted. And it helps me play differently too. Knowing how these drums are being captured, how they're going to be mixed. Where I'm hitting on the head physically has changed since learning how to, mix my own drums. And I think I'm making different decisions and kind of being more of like an engineer's drummer now. Hopefully they like me more now.
Yeah.
But
I think in the early years, like I and others got really focused on if I'm going to record drums, I'm going to need, X amount of these preamps and compressors and all these things, and didn't really focus enough on the drummer, the drums, the tuning, the room.
It is all
where
important.
The drummer hits.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I envy some of the great studio drummers here in Nashville. Like you hear them and it's a fill where they just do boom on the floor tom. And by the way they hit that, you know who it is.
Yeah.
Because they have their own sound. So I like to think that being able to record yourself and have the room and the space and the time and the gear to be able to do that, it's like that's helping me now hopefully come up with my own individual sound. And what is that going to be?
Right.
But it's a mixture of everything. You have to have the right gear. You have to have, the right players and the right microphones and the right preamps. But it's about finding that team. And Nashville's pretty good about that.
Yeah, definitely.
So you're not throwing a bunch of moon gel on your snare and your floor tom to try to get the sound right.
No, I think you can. You can't add life back into the drum. You can definitely take it away in post, but you can't add it back. I'd rather give more than what you want. You can edge some of that out later, but no. If anything, I'll use half of a drum tack on my snare just for control a little bit of the ringing. Sometimes I'll put those underneath the toms on the resonant heads to help a little bit with the decay. But I don't put a bunch of duct tape. I don't put a bunch on there because that's why you're playing real drums. Real acoustic drums have these sounds. You can't mimic that. And if you're trying to take all that away with tape, then you might as well just be sampling.
Exactly.
All that said, though, is there anything specific that you use in the studio that inspires you the most, or is creative to use?
Sure. Oh, that that changes a little bit, every few months as new gear kind of comes in. It's a never ending pit of my wants and desires for what I think that I need. I'm like, I really think I need a subwoofer now, which has been my recent addition. I have a new Genelex subwoofer, and that has completely changed all my mixes for the better because I'm not, struggling to figure out, is that enough bass? Is that too much, bass frequency in my kick drum and everything else I'm doing now? I'm not blowing people's heads off in the car listening to my drums. It's good. But thankfully this last year, Pearl offered for me to become a part of their artist roster. So I play all Pearl drums and equipment now. And obviously having the new drums, I have two different kits. I've got one that's maple gum, one that's birch mahogany, and some new snare drums. And just having those new wood combinations just inspires me a lot too, just by the way they're recording, by the way they feel when I play, being able to be like, I'm going to record this genre of music today. I'm going to put this kit up on my riser. And that just brings out so many new ideas. But Pearl also came out with their Mallet Station, which is a MIDI mallet controller. And Neil had something very similar to that in Rush. He had his Malacat. Yeah. And I was always like, what is that? Yeah. I want that because I'm studying mallets in high school and college. And sure, I'm like an okay piano player. But when I'm trying to put MIDI information into my computer, I'm a little slower with my fingers this way. But if I had something where I could hit and use that to loop, I'm like, I could probably work a lot quicker. And that definitely ended up being the case when, Pearl approached me. I'm like, this would be great. But I have to say the biggest perk for you right now is that you got this Mallet Station. That is the coolest piece of equipment. And I'm so excited to get my hands on that. How quick can that happen? And that's changed my workflow and speeds things along. And I only every day find like new uses for it. I eventually want to be able to trigger a light show using it, or be able to control tracks, stop, start, move to the next one, using that in a live situation, because it's just that one step up from electronic drum pads. It's like I can play scales, I can do chords, I can play it with sticks or mallets. That's changed a lot.
How many octaves is it?
3 or 4 octaves. I think it's 4 octaves.
Okay.
And I can scroll easily on it to go up and down to expand it.
Okay. And does it have built-in sounds, or you're also able to trigger other sounds?
There are no built-in sounds. It's completely a controller. But it kind of comes with the software for if you use Studio One or Logic. It's kind of got those built-in sounds. But I like being able to just do anything I want. The world is my oyster. I can make it sound like anything I want. I'd love to go through, since I've been making a trigger library or a sample library of all the drums that I own, classical, ethnic, and all my drum kit and snare drums. I want to be able to like load those on there too, and be able to like, if I'm going to be somewhere where I can't have my kit, I can still play and trigger my kit and my sounds. That's kind of the next big step. But I would never have had that idea had I not had that piece of equipment, come into my life last year. So that's awesome. I'm just getting excited talking about it because the possibilities, are endless. But that's been kind of a new development in the electronic world. Is there's always a new frontier with the electronics coming out.
Every week, it seems like
a new frontier.
No, that's awesome, because that again, that's another instrument that can inspire to do completely different things too that you hadn't actually thought about. So that's very cool.
Yeah, and that Studio One control app, it works so well you can just use your iPad to record yourself. It's really convenient.
That was a big thing when I was designing the studio. Is most of this time, I want my control room and my drum tracking room to be separate spaces. I don't want to have to set up my computer and everything next to my drums because I'm not going to want to mix from there. I want to have the two separate rooms. So I need to be able to feasibly make this happen, that I can be in 2 places at once and be able to work at home by myself. And Presonus has helped me out with that. We use their whole Studio Live ecosystem, so everything can be controlled with the iPad. I can get my gain level set. I can do, I can work. Logic has good apps for it. Pro Tools has the app, so I can control my whole session and board from behind the drums. And headphone mix everything. And that was just like, I like the whole bringing the iPad. Now I've got a couple iPads, and that changes. It's a game changer because now it allows us to be able to do so much and not have to always have a second person in here, which I couldn't this last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you didn't go to school to be an engineer, but you got that figured out. No problem.
No, they're making it simpler. It's hard because a lot of the tutorials up online, it's like 20 minutes and they go over my head. They go so technical. And if I had gone to school for that, I would have loved to learn about that. But like just trying to find tutorials with more of a basic language. And that's something that I'm getting into recording right now on my own. Just kind of these basics, answering the questions of like, why would I put a mic under my snare drum? What kind of difference does that make? What is, flipping the phase and why do I have to do that? What difference does that make? Because these are the questions I'm getting asked by drummers that desperately just want to learn how to do it. But the material out there is kind of rough to sift through.
Yeah. And there's a patience thing too. Like you got a 20-minute video, you're trying to discover this one problem or solve this one problem. You got to sit through 20 minutes and try to catch it.
Yeah. So we want to know the basics on how to get through it. So kind of developing that content a little bit. But PreSonus has definitely done a great job of making that easy to do with their equipment end of things.
Cool. Yeah.
So
awesome.
Yeah. I like a lot of their gear too. I use Studio One myself and used Logic, Pro Tools, all of them. That one seems to be really stable and easy to use on the recording and capture side for sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm really interested to work more on their new Sphere, being able to collaborate online with other people too and share files easier with people you're collaborating with. That's the future just because of the pandemic, everyone recording at home. I'm excited to kind of dive more into that with their new Studio One updates.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, and phase is really interesting too. That's something that I probably did a lot of recordings in the early years. It just had so much phase issues that I didn't understand or... know that but it's so important. It's so important. And it's relative to acoustics as well, because it's a sound wave and, different frequencies have different wavelengths. So it moves like a wave. So anytime they're opposite from each other, basically two microphones recording the same source and one is in a different spot and that waveform is opposite the other one, they cancel each other out.
Yeah, well, that's a huge problem for drums because we've got more than two mics at any given time. We've got a lot of microphones that we're working with and positioning those, and we're wondering why our drums don't sound as fat. And it's usually the culprit is there's a phase issue. It's like my snare is sounding a little bit thin, and that's totally why. But it took me years for not really knowing the answer that was even the problem.
Right.
And I'm still not perfect. I'm still striving and I'm still learning, but it's a really fun adventure.
Yeah. And you're like, there's something wrong here. You're trying to EQ it, but EQing it will just make that problem worse because it's captured as a phasing issue. Yeah. And in acoustics, it's the same thing. You have something in your room that is a sound in your room or a tone in your room that's overexcited. It's similar to a phase issue and you just have to absorb it to remove it or move the source.
Yeah, Rob had to help me overcome a lot in that drum tracking room when we first started working on it because like I've got a brick wall on one side and I was like trying to do I put carpet down? I'm on a concrete slab. There's a lot to kind of deal. I feel like drums are a hard instrument to capture as it is and to be able to you have to do a lot more work to your space to get it there, but he definitely helped me get it there.
Yeah, concrete and brick is really interesting because it excites certain frequencies a lot. And I see that when working on other people's rooms and analyzing. There's like 250 hertz. You'll have this massive bump of 3 dB or more in 250 hertz just from it hitting concrete. Just gets really excited, bounces right off.
Well, what is it doing with the drywall? Because that's all the walls too.
Yeah.
Like what is that helping? If there's space between two pieces, if there's foam in there, I mean there's just so much that world. Yeah. And just to try to get a good drum sound, I remember sitting in that room when we first got this house and just trying to figure out, the drums sounded okay just playing them in the room. But as soon as like I tried to have band rehearsals over, I was like, the cymbals are hitting the wall behind me and going straight into this vocal mic or straight into these other things. I'm like, it's a mess as soon as I put these headphones on. So I think our first way to tackle that is my mom helped me get this mattress foam pad, and we just stuck it up behind me just because I was getting so sick of the cymbals shooting behind me and then straight back into a microphone.
Yeah.
And it just kind of all started from there. Like, I think we need to put some time and some money and some thought into how do I make this better? Because I can have the best drums in the world.
Yeah, because the mattress pad didn't work, audience. Did you hear that?
It kind of made me feel like I should be in a straitjacket, honestly, with that behind me.
Yeah, exactly. It had that kind of look to it. It's like, where are you?
Yeah, you can still see in some of my older videos with Kyle and the chromatics of my room. You know, that was just experimenting.
You
That's
were
kind
doing
of the
what you
fun
had
of
to.
it.
Exactly. And like you said, it's a learning process. So that was part of the learning process.
You have to appreciate it and want to improve the room, and that's part of the process of getting to that point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And you know, when sound hits a surface, it either absorbs, reflects, or transmits through, no matter what the surface is. So different surfaces transmit more or reflect more or absorb more, right? And too much of anything is a bad thing, right? So too much absorption would be bad. Too much reflection, obviously bad. You have to find the right balance. And even you can use reflection to your advantage, like your Wave 6 cloud that's over top of you. It reflects because that's wood, right? But wood has a nice sounding reflection, and it creates diffusion because of those wells or those holes in each one of those lenses. Energy will hit that and pass through or reflect back down, but it spreads it out so that it isn't a harsh reflection like you're describing where the cymbal comes directly off the surface right back to your head.
No, that cloud above me, I really think it gives this illusion that my room is like an extra 10 feet taller of a ceiling than it really is. It just gives me this illusion when I listen to it and I actually look at the room. It feels like I'm playing in more of a vaulted ceiling.
Yeah, because you don't have a harsh reflection. It feels like it dissipates instead. And that makes you feel like or interpret the ceiling being higher than it is. So yeah.
It also looks really cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's important.
The stealth bomber above your head.
Yeah, it looks like that B-2 bomber. And I'm a big Star Wars fan, so everything in my studio has to kind of have that spaceship looking aspect to it.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
I want that for multiple reasons.
Yeah,
and then
we can tell you're a big Star Wars fan. There's a threat. There's a huge threat behind your head back there.
I got it. Yeah. That Death Star. It's over my bar cart, so I call it the Death Bar back there.
Yeah, there it is.
It's all Imperial Star Wars themed throughout the rooms.
Yeah. Is that where you're located
cool.
after a session? That's the bar cart after the day is done, the session's done.
That's the Death Bar. It's where we go to the dark side when we're done working for the day.
It's important to have that. It's important to have that.
Every time I'm over there, I just think of that. I just think of that one scene. He's like, "Do you want to buy some death sticks?" You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
That's
I'm
great.
sorry. That has nothing to do with anything in this podcast.
No,
I'm sorry.
that has all things to do with that. That's awesome. I was going to mention too that you have rather than having your drums just on the concrete slab, you built a riser that you isolated also off the floor, and then you're using what's called the hover deck, which are panels that you put down under your kit for that, and that helps control the sound and control the vibration and that kind of thing. And I was just curious if you, was that, have you found that beneficial, and has that helped define or tighten up the sound a little bit more of the drum kit on the riser?
Yeah, absolutely. I've over the last few years kind of been experimenting different ways. Originally, my dad helped me build this riser, but between the support beams underneath the riser, originally it was hollow, so that is going to change up the sound a bit. And we were just trying to put carpets, and of course with drums you want to put you think you might want to put a thick carpet underneath to help absorb the sound, but the drums don't sit very nicely on a thick carpet, so you have to use a thin carpet. So it's like, how do I fix this? I still want to be up off the ground. The next step was adding foam so that there was no just empty space within this riser system. And that helped a whole lot. It was getting rid of these really nasty overtones I thought were coming from my drums, and I think it was just the reverberation of the wood unit underneath me, just letting these certain tones live in there.
Yeah, exciting that cavity, and then they can't escape.
Exactly, between just the concrete slab and the carpet below that. So tightening up the sound, just filling in those spaces with foam so that there's no free air space in there for anything to bounce around in. And then, kind of looking at studios in Nashville, like what are they using underneath these drums? So being able to see, I think it was at the Nashville Drum Show, I saw at the Auralex booth these, the hover deck, which are like the 2x2 foot squares. And I'm like, well, that would fit really well because I've got a 6x8 foot riser. And wanting to try that underneath my drums, that helped. But I also kind of doubled down and used the hover mat, which is like the drum rug version that kind of helps tie it all together. And that's portable. That goes with me to other studios. That goes with me on the road for live gigs, just giving me a little bit of separation from the excitement of what's happening on the floor of the stage. And just, I think, helping really well with, there's a lot of, happening on the bottom side resonant heads of my drums. Yeah. So I really need whatever's underneath me to clean up that sound and not take it away or not throw it back in my face at the microphones. Yeah. So I think it has really helped to have those two systems on top of my riser and underneath my drums, the hover deck and the hover mat. It's really tightened up everything. I think it's the best way to put it, is just tighten up that sound.
Right. There's some there's some situations where you do want some of that liveliness that you get having the drums just on a wood floor or on concrete or stone. But like you said, there's a lot going on underneath those drums, and if you're not, if you don't want that, you need to figure out how to eliminate that. So I'm glad those two things are helping you out, because that's exactly what they're designed to do. So
I think they make a huge difference, and I love how the hover mat is portable and I can take it everywhere with me. It takes away some of what because it's a lot of energy, it's a lot of sound underneath those drums, but I don't want all of it to go away. I still think it gives me a beefy, fatter tone. My drums have this beefier, fatter tone than if I was just on a standard piled rug. Yeah. That takes away everything from me. So I don't know what you do specifically when you make those mats, but I still feel like it keeps the bassier frequencies and helps keep this fatter sound, but just tames it a bit.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. There's an effect of the bass drum transmitting into the floor that it's on, and then that floor gets excited depending on what it is and transmits back to the drum. And they cancel each other out. It sounds a little muddy. It sounds a little weird. The hover mat just removes that effect. And then it's the true sound of the drum. And then the drum can speak out without the floor being involved.
Yes. That's the perfect way to put it. But I think that's like a really quick, surefire, first step for, any drummer just wanting to improve their sound really quickly without, gluing anything to the walls. It's like almost like just start there and build from there. Get the hover deck or the hover mat, just start and record that by itself and just try to hear the difference, which would be a fun experiment to do sometime, actually, with or without that. Yeah, definitely. But I just think that's like a really good first step for anybody.
Did you isolate your drum room at all? sound isolation? Because there's a difference between, we've talked about diffusion over your kit, and we've talked about absorption, and the hover deck and hover mat are a little bit in the isolation category. But did you isolate your room from the rest of the house or your control room?
So it's kind of naturally isolated in that room that my drums are in is an addition built off the house. So that brick wall I was telling you about, that was the end of the house. And you could walk out and it was a concrete patio slab that people before me built to an addition. And actually that was a woodworking shop, but it had the high ceilings. It had a bunch of outlets around the walls, which were important.
Yeah.
And there's a whole wall between me and the rest of the house. So I think that kind of gave me a good buffer where if I'm playing in there, it really doesn't seep into where I am in the control room mixing it all.
Yeah, interior walls oftentimes in homes don't even have insulation in them. So you got an exterior wall with insulation, with drywall, with block and air gap between the block, and then another structure built on top of that. So
So I did not add any myself. I also kind of supplement a little bit. There's a sliding glass door that brings me down into that room. I covered up the glass with velvet curtains. That seemed to be kind of a good way to just kind of tame just the windows of that. And that's the only way the sound can really come through from that outer room is through the glass. But the curtains help a little bit. But I didn't get to do the floating floor, or isolating the walls. But I think as far as a home setup, this was kind of the ideal situation and a real selling point for why my parents, when they found this house, they're like, this is the home that you were going to grow into. Yeah. And I think and be able to be in it musically for a very long time.
Yeah. Right. No, that's great. And it worked out well that you can record in that room without an engineer in the control room. You don't really have to worry about the bleed at that point.
I don't. Don't have to worry about the bleed. I have a secondary, a smaller room in between these two where that sliding glass, and that's kind of turned into, if I've got an amp mic'd up, it's really nice for vocal overdubs, especially for like a male voice. It's bassier. I've recorded like violin and cello in there, and it sounds really good. But it wasn't a big enough room. I wanted that to be my control room because then I could see through the glass into the drums. But it just wasn't going to be a big enough room to mix in.
Right.
Because I know, Rob, we had bounced that idea off each other. So that's why I moved out here and have a much more spacious room, for the mixing. So this is a little bit, I don't know.
Yeah, you don't want to go too small for the mix room either. You want that energy to breathe a little bit.
So we moved out into this bigger room, and I'm really, really happy we did.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That sounds like you have the perfect house.
I'm so thankful for it.
It's laid out great to do this. Yeah. It's laid out great to set up the way she's done it, because lots of people have trouble, they're on the second floor or wherever, and they have to deal with that floor problem and isolation with that. When I first saw the space, I was like, wow, this is I was really jealous. I was like, this is pretty cool. You don't have to bring in the backhoe and start digging and all that kind of stuff and putting up 3,000 layers of drywall to make this work. So it was great. It was a really good choice on your part as far as a place to start and build a studio. So
I thank my parents for that. They had the foresight, the vision, and the eye for it.
Yeah.
But it's definitely grown with me, and I love kind of the studio has really grown and evolved to where it is now, and I just only see it kind of getting better from here. And
awesome.
My parents helped me a lot with that. They've helped me snake all the cables under the house, so it's all really clean under the crawl space.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty insane. I've got I've just got these cables and the boxes in different rooms of the house, and it's all snaked under the house and comes up right behind where my desk is. And it's pretty cool. I eventually want to add another room, my lower living room, since I love having friends over and doing little bluegrass jams of people in a circle. I want to permanently mount a couple overheads to be able to just kind of pick up those smaller bluegrass room jams. So eventually it's like I'm just going to be living in the only part of the studio that's my house is like the bathroom and my room. Yeah. That's what it's going to turn into.
Yeah, it could be like your Elvis jungle room,
I already have like the washboard and some drums in the bathroom. It's like, well,
That's
I'm here.
Yeah. So I saw your Instagram post about the rock boat. What is that?
The rock boat. I don't even know how to explain it. It's a music festival that's been happening for 21 years, but it happens on a cruise, and they call it the rock boat. It was an experience. So I had a phone call about a month ago from these two guys in DC. They're called Elevado. And they reached out to me because they were looking to add drums for their performances on the rock boat. And I remember asking them, like, well, what is this rock boat? What can I expect? They're like, we can't really put it into words. Just say yes. Just come.
Yeah.
And it's going to change your life. Just say yes, please come, just do this with us. I was like, well, but yeah, it definitely changed my life a little bit.
Have you ever been on a cruise ship before?
I had never been on a cruise ship.
Wow.
I'd been on ferries, but never a cruise. So I was like, well, I mean, it's getting cold. I want to get out of Nashville. It's heading out of Miami. It's going to Jamaica. It's going to the Bahamas. Like, well, I would take the gig just because of that.
Yeah, I would have. If you needed a roadie, I would have been happy to help out. Right there. You know.
Yeah. Right.
Next time I'll ask you to do it.
Thank you.
Come be my drum tech.
Exactly.
So much fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they asked me to do this, but it was supposed to be on the down low because they were the stowaways. So they released most of the full lineup for the rock boat ahead of time, but they have a couple bands reserved as stowaways that are kind of secrets that people don't know you're there until you walk on the boat the day of. And then,
oh wow!
So Brent and Brad of Elevado have done this cruise with other groups before, and Elevado is their new duo project, and they'd done the rock boat a bunch of times, so people knew kind of who they were, and they were really excited to kind of be the stowaways. So it's like as soon as like the word got out we were there, it was like this cult of people were like, oh my gosh, Elevado's here, and they're like trying to figure out who I am because I've never had a third person in the band before. And I just kind of lied low until the show that night. I think people thought that I was one of their girlfriends because what else am I doing there? It's these two guys in the band, and that's all their pictures. But the way I got the gig was kind of an interesting fact too. So there's two connections. One is their producer here in Nashville. He used to be, well, he's from Syracuse like I am, and used to be in a band with my drum teacher, John Bletch. So I was one connection, and then they had been working with Nierzy, who's an incredible studio drummer here in Nashville that I really look up to.
Awesome.
And I really want to model my career. If you don't know who he is, look up Nierzy and all the amazing records he's put drums on. But I've been kind of following his career in Nashville and trying to get him to notice me and hear my playing over the last 10 years since I've been here. And I think, thankfully, he knows who I am now. But he had been working with the guys in Elevado and said, if you're, for the rock boat, you need to, I think you need to add drums for the live performance to really, because it's going to be a bunch of full bands on this ship. And they're like, well, who should we add? And he's like, I think you need to get Kaylee Moyer.
Well,
gosh, he actually remembers me, and that was like so cool. But they saw what I was doing with the Mallet Station. I think he thought that would be a good addition, since they have a lot of synth on their album and electronic percussion, and I can incorporate that in and maybe take away some of the lead lines that they're having to cover on synths. I can cover that on the Mallet Station. Visually, it looks really cool. It adds something different, and then I can go between that and drum kit.
Cool.
So they looked me up on Instagram, like, can you do that? Can you do that, but on our music? I'm like, absolutely. I've been waiting for somebody to want to incorporate me in that way. And go between the mallets and the drums. So that's kind of how I got in on it. They showed up the week before we went on the boat. We rehearsed for a few days, and I learned all 3 of their sets. And we did this crazy thing. So it's a 5-day long cruise. We played 3 shows on that cruise. The ship had, I think, 7 or 8 stages.
Really?
So it was like a festival. I mean, there were probably almost 30 bands there, and just depending on what time of day, what kind of music you're into. They had American Authors, Sister Hazel, Switchfoot.
I saw Switchfoot on the list. That's awesome.
Cool. They are amazing.
Yep, absolutely.
And then just being able to, like, all these Nashville bands I had never had a chance to meet before. like animal years and like getting on the cruise and hanging in the artist lounge. I mean, over half the guys in the cruise and the bands were all Nashville people. And I was like,
that's great.
Nashville represent of all the, more than the LA guys, more than the New York guys, like Nashville is like the city all these people are moving to. So I made a whole bunch of new friends.
Awesome.
And I mean, like I said, it had been happening for 21 years and it's like a badge of honor to go many times in a row. I met somebody on the ship that had been there all 21 cruises.
Wow.
And she's like in with all the bands. She knows them all on a first name basis. They know her.
Wow.
It's this kind of crazy family where once these people become fans, they're like your friends for life.
That's very cool.
And
that sounds fantastic.
So it's like all my favorite things about, you know, like being at a music festival and meeting new people combined with, I mean, I'm on a boat. I can, you know, go out, sit Jamaica in the sunshine, have a drink, just kind of run between all of it. But you know how people get like a little goofier on like cruise ships and at rock festivals, I guess, than like uptightness of a normal show, meet and greets. Well, as a joke, the guys in the band were like, because there's theme nights on the boat. There's a Halloween night, there's a Vegas night, I forgot what other nights there were, but they almost encourage you to dress goofy. And mingle with people. And I was at the thrift store a few weeks prior and I'd found this like tiger onesie with like a giant tiger face and ears. And I was like, I don't know what possessed me, but when the guys came to pick me up to drive to Miami, I was wearing that. I'm like, this is what I'm going to wear for the shows. I hope that's okay. They're like, you joke about it, but you don't understand how perfect that's going to be for this cruise. So I played the first show with like my normal cool outfit with the silver fringe and I did my thing and it went well. But for the meet and greet 2 days later, I showed up wearing my tiger onesie just because like I wanted to be goofy that day and I was feeling it.
Cool.
And then everybody in line begged me to wear that to the show tonight. Please wear it for the show. And I'm like, you know what? Fine, I'll do it.
Yeah. What the heck?
And next thing I know, people were calling me Tiger Queen.
Really?
And we're like, of course, that I'm on a cruise. It's hot and it's sweaty. We're in the Bahamas. I'm wearing this like flannel feeling
You're like, I'm not Carol Baskins.
with the hood, but everybody's just like, when they would see me and I'm like, Tiger Queen, tiger onesie, and then get angry with me if I wasn't walking around with it on.
Oh, really?
Jeez.
So I ended up, for the next show, people were like, are you going to wear the onesie for the last show? Are you going to wear a onesie? Are you going to wear the tiger onesie? And I was like, no, I think I'm going to be professional and not wear it. But actually, I had it like right down by my feet. So in the last show, the guys are like, you know what, Kayleigh, something's a little off here. I feel like something's missing. You're not, like the magic just isn't there. What's happening? And then I stand up, put my like tiger onesie on because people are like, put the onesie on. Put the
Wow.
So on that boat, people are like, we're gonna get tiger onesies and wear them next time you're on the rock boat because like we're your like tiger club.
Awesome.
That's great.
Anyway, that's just my goofy. So the people in Switchfoot and these other bands are probably just like, oh yeah, the tiger onesie girl.
The tiger onesie girl.
Like you almost don't recognize me without it on, but I'm like, well, that'll just be my rock boat thing. But for real, if I never get a chance to play that festival again, I will be so bummed. Because
really.
It was
that's
it's hard to explain. It's just this crazy music family that just kind of after the year that we've all been through.
Yeah.
It's just really reminded me like why we make music again. And how much fun and just like how people just love and connect with you because, you know, you play music and they love listening to music and it's just like you make them happy, they make us happy. And it's like there's this whole between musicians and the fans, this symbiotic relationship that we really take for granted.
Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. It just was like re-inspired me again.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people mention that same kind of thing too. Just being able to get back out and playing in front of people and getting a reaction back from somebody in person, you know, after we've all been kind of sitting here staring at our screens forever, you know. Just that human interaction is incredibly important, and it inspires you to do more, really. Yeah. So that's a great observation.
Yeah, we've been making this audience for people on the computer that we just feel so disconnected from.
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, not only just get to play like in person and again, it really was. I don't know. It just filled up my soul again, and I feel like okay, I'm not kicked down the ground anymore. Like. Here we go, going into 2022. I'm like, I feel good.
Yeah.
Then again,
Yeah.
Very
just
cool.
A good exchange of
restored.
energy. You give it and you get it back.
No, definitely. So Brad and Brent in Elevado are kind of the project I didn't see coming,
Yeah.
just out of the
Wow.
blue. And they're like, just say yes, just come with us. You're going to have the time of your life. Let's do it. So I think that this has opened the door to doing a lot more with them. They're such a fun, high energy group, and they literally let me do whatever I want.
Cool.
They're like, do more of the Mallet Station stuff, build that into the show, go crazy on the drums. Since their music was more electronic based, I kind of had this decision to make between, am I going to play a lot of pads and
Right.
try to recreate the record?
Right.
Or do I want to keep a lot of that in the tracks and add acoustic drums and that energy on top of it? So I ended up going with the second and just kind of composing these drum parts on top that I just had so much fun playing with these guys. So
Cool.
there's going to be more going into 2022 with them, I think.
Awesome.
Great.
If they'll have the Tiger onesie girl, I don't know if I'll be able to play a show without
You might
that.
need to ask Pearl to come up with a tiger finish on a new drum kit,
Yeah.
That might work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or like a jungle finish on the shells, so the tiger is
Yeah.
in the jungle.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it. I'll have to get you the picture of the tiger onesie.
Yeah, please send.
It's not even just a tiger onesie. It's like a tiger onesie you got off of Wish.
Yeah.
Because it's just this crazy face where it's like the eyes and the mouth, and my body is the tiger's face. It makes no sense. But it was like at the Goodwill outlet where you pay by the pound. So it probably cost me like 20 cents.
Right.
Right.
But it was well worth it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got a lot of
Yeah.
mileage out of that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So if you can make me the Auralex onesie, I would be really happy from now on. That just might be my thing.
We'll have to
But-
figure out how to.
In a more breathable material.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, my onesies turn into twosies when I put them on. They just kind of, it's kind of rough, but we'll. It doesn't work for me. Anyway, how did the mallet pad work out? Was that easy to get around and set up and work with the sound people and all that kind of stuff?
That was super easy. They had a really great cartage company with great crew guys on the ship that all
Cool.
my cases were labeled. So they would make sure they went into storage at the end of the night and showed up at the right stage the next day. I have a wheeled carrying case that it's like 2 cymbal stands that hold up the Mallet Station can connect to it. And those 2 stands actually fit in the case underneath with it. So it's all self-contained. There's only things that I have to plug into it. It's a USB cable that goes straight to my computer.
Okay.
And that powers it as well. And then just my sustain pedal that also plugs into it. And
Cool.
I ended up running out of my computer into stereo for this because I had some delay things that I was doing.
Okay.
But the sound guys just ran it in stereo and they really liked it. All the crew guys are like writing down exactly what it is. So hopefully Carl's got a couple of interested people after. The drummers were like, I want one of those.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason I ask is that sometimes when you bring something like that out of, into a setup where everybody's kind of used to just setting up for a regular standard drum kit, you're like, whoa, what the heck is that? Sometimes you get people that are like, I don't know what we're going to do with that, or I don't know how to deal with that. But that's cool. I'm glad that
they had seen it on the stage plot ahead of time. So these guys are just like, so what is this mallet thing we've been reading about? How is this gonna? Cool. How are we gonna work this? And it worked out well. I ended up running it all through Logic because the Elevado guys had recorded their sessions in Logic, so I was able to just kind of use their samples, and
awesome.
It was super, super easy. I don't know. I kind of got into this system where I'm like, I want every gig I take from now on pretty much to use this because it's definitely Neil Peart inspired.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
There's so many ways in modern music you can use this now, and I'm like, I don't want to just be the drummer anymore. I want to cover some of these melodies, and I was also able to trigger like snaps and claps, bass drops, all the same stuff I would have done on my SPDSX pad.
Right.
But just taking this instead just opened it up for me to do even more melodic stuff.
Yeah, and can you split the keyboard up into zones so you can do a section of percussion sounds and then melodic things and triggers and
absolutely. I can make it do whatever I want. Eventually, I want to have like when I'm running tracks with it too. I want like the bottom 2 keys to be like start, stop,
right.
next, moving it to the next, and then I can. But sometimes it's just easier to start clean.
Yeah.
With each song, so I've got each song, whatever is on that song, on one setting.
Right.
And then I hit next, and it's everything else. I just have to remember to what octave I need to make sure I'm on, because I can change if I want to go to higher octaves, because it's not the full.
Right.
Right. It's not 88, and you got to move it up and down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So that was the only thing, was just marking on my charts, like remembering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which, without that reference, like, what is this key again?
Whoa.
Wow. But
What
everyone's
was
just
that?
like, it was just kind of intriguing. I played it both with mallets and with sticks, because they can do both, just
Cool.
depending on what else I was covering. And I think it was a major success, and now it's like my favorite toy ever.
Awesome. That's awesome. Very cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
Anything else? Anybody else you're working with?
Yeah, actually, there's kind of two new artists, and one of them I can finally talk about. I think, hopefully. Ian Flanagan is a really talented country artist, singer, songwriter, guitarist.
Yep.
He was on the last season of The Voice.
Yeah.
On Blake Shelton's team, and he's now got a label, and he just released a song with Blake Shelton on country radio called Grow Up. And he's going to be doing a lot with that. I just played a show with him in Maryland this last weekend, and
Cool.
He's amazing. I'm super, super, super excited. He's just one of those artists that comes in and I can just jam. We jam for 2 hours, just guitar and drums one night after a rehearsal, just because he's not just an artist, he's a musician.
Right.
Too.
Right.
He's fantastic. So he's going to be working on recording his album for the next 2 months or so. I'm going to be going to film the music video to go with Grow Up in Kansas City next week.
Cool.
So hopefully in the next month or so, that'll be able to come out and you can see that too. But I'm very, very, very excited. That was, he's actually under the same, I think, management team as another artist I used to play for. So it just kind of worked out when somebody mentioned my name, like, oh, we already know Kaylee. Let's get her into,
Cool.
to play.
Cool.
So I finally hit 10 years in Nashville this fall, and it's like finally they call it a 10-year town.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, somebody be like, "Oh yeah, I have heard of her."
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There
It's
you
your
go.
10. It's your 10-year overnight success. Is what that is.
Does not feel like overnight.
No,
in
not
any
at all.
way.
Not at all.
But
Not at all.
and then like I mentioned, I've been doing a lot of auditions just because coming out of COVID, some of the artists that we're playing for aren't jumping back into touring immediately. They might be still recording an album. They might still be waiting on funding. I don't really know, but just kind of working with new artists. And I'm got some possible stuff coming up with a new pop artist out of Nashville, and just kind of seeing between Elevado and Ian Flanagan and this pop project. I think 2022 is going to be a really great year.
Yeah.
Very
It's
cool.
going to rock.
Yeah, it's going to rock.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, I like to kind of be the drummer that when you need something a little more out of the box, to kind of be that person you call. I don't do as much of just the straight up country demo. I definitely can. But I like somebody that's willing to, like I'm trying to do more of a gospel area on this. Or I had somebody this last year who wanted a tribal drumming intro. They're looking for something a little unique, and like, can you give me an option with that? You've got a bunch of percussion instruments at your disposal. Instead of playing the hi-hat, can you put this on it instead? So I've done a lot of instrumental stuff, rock, pop, some funk recently. I love it all. I'm getting ready to work on some Christmas jazz stuff because it's almost the season for that. Yeah. I love jazz. Yeah. I don't know. It's if you want just a fresh take or a fresh idea, drumming wise, I kind of want to be that person, and I can definitely play the safe take. But kind of over this last year, I saw that you just had done one of these interviews with Glenn Rosenstein.
Yeah,
and he's been a producer who's really kind of changed my mindset when I'm working in the studio, and he had like the greatest piece of advice for me on the first session I ever worked with him on. And,
oh, really? What was that?
Well, we were playing through this tune, and he's like, okay, that was good. You didn't play anything wrong. It didn't sound bad. It was safe. It was what most people are looking for. But I don't want that. I want you to kind of take that first idea and your next idea and throw those out the window. Let's start with your third idea. Like if you were to take like your gut instinct for these first, I mean, most people in Nashville, you do 3 takes of a song and they usually keep the third take and that's what you get. He's like, I want to start on that third take. What is kind of the idea? And it's getting away from the safeness of a take and more of the uniqueness, the individuality of the player. He's like, most drummers, that's exactly what they're going to play. And that's the right answer. So I can't get angry about, I can't get mad at you. Right. This is what you're used to doing. But, what's a take that's going to scream, this is Kayleigh. This is her flair on it. But, good. So I'll usually, and I started there and I played a new idea and he's like, great. I really like that one. That's really Stuart Copeland-ish. Now play it a little cleaner and with feeling, and we went from there. And it's like, and now I'm doing that with everybody I work with. And that's just kind of his style, his Glenn's, I think, real talent is just being able to pull greatness out of people and just being able to pull their absolute best idea and their best take out of them that they didn't even know that they had in them.
Right.
So I just kind of love this.
You look at you look at the list of people he's worked with and that a lot of what you just said, you'll go, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cause, there's some artists and some songs that he worked on. And when you were saying that, I was just kind of flipping those through my head going, yeah, okay. I completely understand what he probably had mentioned to the drummer for that track because it's something that it's something that stuck out in my mind as, well, that's different. That's cool. That's not the same old thing over and over again. There's some personality
not the expected.
To it. So.
And that's just kind of all just kind of taking that as, okay, let me take my first 2 ideas and they might be good and maybe I can come back to them, but let's throw them out the window, start with that third idea. And I really enjoy working with people that also appreciate that too. So just kind of coming out with that out of the box, something a little different from everything I've studied thus far. So, and Stuart Copeland tends to be a favorite with him. I feel like when I play a Stuart Copeland groove, he really likes it.
Yeah. Well, how could you not, right? I mean,
no,
I guess unless you just wanted the straight, 4/4 safe take, you wouldn't want any Stuart Copeland in there.
Yeah, I mean, and it's still serving the song, which is the most important, thing. Right. I'm not playing something completely just heinous for the song. Like it still fits, but it's just not
it
that.
It still fits exactly.
It's not just what the Logic drum machine is going to spit out for this. Yeah, it's like you're hiring a real drummer with real experience and a past, and bring that to the table. So I don't know. That was just kind of cool.
That's a good example.
Very cool.
Like when Logic first came out with those drummers, there's different styles, and this would be great to just play to this and try to get some song ideas going. But it's so basic. There's no creativity at all. It doesn't really get things flowing at all. It's just straight. No. So anybody can contact you if they have the goods, if they have what it takes, and they have a song that needs drums, percussion, soundscapes, a lot of different things, right? And they can find you on YouTube as well as KayleeMoyer.com and Facebook and Instagram, and that'll lead you back to your website.
The website's kind of the launching point for depending on what you're looking for from me. So going to KayleeMoyer.com, and there's even a tab that's for remote sessions, so you can kind of see the list of gear, kind of the examples of some of the stuff I've done. And I can some people prefer to just have the raw stems and they mix it, and some people would rather just be able to have me do a basic mix and they can just drag and drop it in, and it's kind of just add water. You got an instant drummer kind of in your group. So I kind of do it both ways, and I usually will, start with 3 takes and kind of work from there. But I'd love to just start putting drums and percussion on. And anybody listening to this, if you've got an idea, let's try it out and kind of see what we can make together. But cool. Just reach out to me, and I can kind of send you all the info.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
there's a lot of videos of you playing online, so get a real quick idea of what your drums sound like, which sound great. And I assume you don't use a lot of compression or limiting on the take.
No,
Kind of.
I mean, you could always add
right,
that.
and you hit the drum right every time. You shouldn't need it as much, right?
No, and I get fussy with some engineers if they put a really slamming gate on something or they compress things a lot, because I play really dynamically, and I'm kind of almost acting like internally as I've got a set of faders.
Right.
And if I've got my drums, I finally got my drums, I think, to be really well dialed in with the equipment I've got in the room I've got. So I know this dynamic range that I can play in, and it almost fades itself in and out. And I'm thinking of that as I'm composing the part and I'm tracking it. Right. So I tend to not, give myself a lot of compression, because I think I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm mixing myself as I play.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
And then that's going to help you more than that compressor would in the mix phase, right? Because you're going to give it a little more energy on the chorus. You're going to give it a little more energy at the end.
Mm-hmm. I like
that
using...
snare hit is louder because it's supposed to be louder.
Exactly. But I like using compression as its own effect too. Like, you can get some really cool, unique snare sounds that I can't get just with the drum in front of me physically. Yeah. But, so sometimes it's being used, but it's its own tool. It's not just this thing that's always there that I always have to use.
Right.
Right. Exactly.
That's fantastic. So, here's the big question, right? Here's the kicker. This is the toughest question that we had for you.
I'm nervous.
So I hope you're ready to answer this.
Okay.
You have to answer truthfully. All right. Is there something else interesting or unexpected about you that people don't know, that you haven't told us or haven't told us a lot about Kaylee Moyer outside the world of audio, your hobbies, interests, activities?
Ooh. My email address is eatsleepdrum@hotmail. So that's the majority of what I do is drumming.
At Hotmail. So you've had that for a while.
Oh, I've had that since I was like 13. I'm not letting that go. Drums are my life. I love drums. And over the last year, what's kind of helped keep me sane, sometimes you got to step away from what is your whole life. Mm-hmm. And whenever I'm feeling really overwhelmed or I've got a lot of emotions going on, I just need to recharge. My two things recently, I love fishing, because I was born in Alaska. I grew up fishing with my parents. I love fishing. And I've been getting into cooking homemade pasta. Has been kind of my fun hobby as well. So we got a pasta roller, and my mom and I have been tackling these crazy Italian granny pasta recipes, and that's just been fun. So
very cool.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
And I've been posting a lot of that up on Instagram and stuff, and people kind of seem to be getting a kick out of it. But it's fun listening to Italian music, drinking a little wine, making and eating pasta. Who doesn't love eating pasta? And then just jumping in my truck. I got 2 poles in my tackle box in there permanently, and just finding a body of water around Nashville and fishing. And those are the 2 things.
What do you fish for? You bass fishing?
Awesome.
There's bass. But what's been more fun are the catfish, fighting a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're mean.
They're mean. I like their whiskers. No, I don't really go out to catch fish to eat. It's just more of I do a lot of just mostly a catch and release. It's just being outside. Yeah. Some sunshine on your skin is good when you're stuck in a studio all the time. It's good to remember that, you get a little bit of the vitamin on your skin from the sunshine and being out in the water and just being so peaceful, and just to be quiet. Because if you're making a lot of noise, they're scaring the fish away. So just to be able to be still, be quiet, sing little fishy songs to bring the fish in. I don't know.
Oh yeah, I haven't tried that. Maybe that's what I'm missing.
I did as a kid. My parents taught me, and I still think it makes a difference.
Yeah.
You're fishy,
the
fishy
songs.
Yeah.
Come and bite my hook. I don't know. These little kid songs about fishing. But no, that's it. That's the gist of me. I make pasta, I fish,
cool.
And I play drums.
And you've been able to find good places to fish around here in Nashville?
I just found an awesome new spot called Marrowbone Lake. And
Oh,
so you have to have a fishing license to fish in Tennessee. So I've got my fishing license, but you can go to this spot, and it's a Tennessee wildlife area, but you can rent like a rowboat, a flat boat for $10 for the whole day. So you can go sit out in a boat and fish, and they've got everything. My mom and I were out there a couple weekends ago, and they were just getting catfish. It was awesome, but they've got everything. And as the weather gets cooler, cool. I'm sure we'll start having a bit more luck when we're there, but that's my new favorite spot, because otherwise I'd just be sitting on the shore. And that place, you can get a boat the whole day for $10, and it's a steal.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah. It's been so
cool.
hot that they've all been hiding right down in the depths of the lake somewhere. So when it's starting to cool off, they'll start coming up to the surface or closer.
And that's where I'll be waiting.
With the Death Star.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That's a video that needs to happen, a Star Wars video of me fishing. I like it.
There you go.
I like it.
Mm-hmm. There it is. There it is.
Yeah. Well, Kaylee, thanks for joining us today on Creative Spaces. We appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. We had a great time talking to you. I hope you enjoyed it too, and I hope everybody out there got a little something out of it about how to start your career, how to build a drum room, and be successful and have fun doing it.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was a really fun discussion. I didn't expect to get into some of the things we got into today, but
great.
This was awesome. Let's just call and chat like this more often. I like this.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But thank you for taking the time today.
Thank you for including me. This was awesome.